Thank you for joining us this evening for our webinar. Welcome to all of our incoming first year families. My name is Caitlin Oliver, and I'm one of the Senior Assistant Deans of Admission and the Coordinator of College Access and Inclusion here at Franklin and Marshall College, and we're very happy to have you here this evening. I'll be moderating today's discussion, and you're in for a treat. We have our president, Barbara Altman, on the call. We have our provost, Cameron Wesson, with us this evening, as well as the vice president and dean of student affairs, Margaret Hazlett. We also have Donna Flum, who is co-chairing our reopening operations team, or ROOT, to respond to your questions. We will first have opening remarks by those who I have listed, providing some information, and then we will end with a Q&A for about 25 minutes at the end. Thank you to those who have submitted questions upon registration. We are also live streaming this event. So if anyone has questions throughout the webinar, please feel free to visit go.f as in Franklin, and A-N-D, M as in Marshall, .edu/town hall. And Josh has put it in our chat box for you to reference throughout the time. So feel free to pose your questions throughout the webinar. I'll be monitoring that while our colleagues speak, and we'll be combining questions to make sure that we sort of expand on information that is being shared. Okay, so President Altman, would you like to begin this session?
Thank you very much, Caitlin. I'm delighted to speak next. And I'm Barbara Altman. I'm the president of Franklin Marshall. I'm so delighted. I wish I could see you, but I'm delighted to know you're there. I want to welcome our first year students, their families, and our transfer students as well. This is just very exciting that you are here with us on this call. And I hope that what we are able to tell you today will answer at least some of your questions. We're so excited that we made the decision last year that we intend to reopen and have students on campus this fall. That was a long deliberation, as you can imagine. We needed to make sure that we are able to handle this with the necessary safety protocols in place. And I'm delighted to say that our Board of Trustees endorsed the decision to have students on campus last week, Tuesday, so that we could announce on Wednesday. And we hope that you are excited at the prospect of coming to campus as well. Some of you will have been here in Lancaster and know the campus. Some of you might not have come at all yet. And so you will be imagining your first view of what it's like when you set foot on the ground and when you arrive. Education is what we do, and we are a residential college by definition and by nature. So having you come for community and for education that will be delivered in a hybrid fashion with some in-person components and with the opportunity to build community at safe distance, that is just a really exciting prospect for us, and we cannot wait for you to get here. So I want to start, of course, by saying that this is a time of incredible uncertainty and great anxiety for everyone. We are all anxious, whether it's for our personal health and safety, whether it's for the health and safety of our loved ones, whether it's about our professional situation or about what it's going to be like when we first get to school. This is a time of rampant uncertainty. And while we are going to be able to answer a lot of your basic questions today, we're not going to be able to answer everything yet. We are working 24/7 to get the plans in place. And I encourage you to look frequently at our website on reopening so that you can see the latest information that we post. And we are posting as we are making decisions. I wanted to make sure that you understand the 4 pillars, the 4 principles on which we decided that we will open and can reopen. And those are the 4 following principles. The first of them is obviously the health and safety of every member of our community. So that's our students, but it's also our professional staff and our faculty. And then there's the very real fact that we are located in the wonderful city of Lancaster. And we also are responsible for our neighbors and the safety and health of our surrounding community. So we are not an island. We do not function independent of the rest of the world, and that is something that we need to take into account. Health and safety have to be the baseline on which this works. The second is academic experience. F&M, you will know by now because you've accepted our offer of admission and you've committed to coming. We are known for our powerhouse academic program. It is a first-rate program. I would say that it is a world-class education. And that is something that we will also maintain, even though the method of instruction will be a hybrid method, which is something unlike last year. But our faculty have been training and training and training. We put some courses, in fact, 550 of them online in short order at the end of the spring term to see out the academic year. We have since developed a second generation of online teaching for a really robust summer session that's going on right now that is online only. And for the fall, faculty are preparing all of their courses to be delivered in a hybrid manner. They will all have that intensity of connection that is a hallmark of our education. That is a chance for really close mentoring from your faculty and very close work, collaborative work with other students in your class. You will learn from your peers as well as you do from your faculty and from the professional staff around you as well. So the quality, the very high quality, the high impact nature of our academic program is the second pillar of how we're arranging to work this year. The third one is the quality of the student life experience. Here, I have to warn you that on every campus across the country this year, residential life is going to look different than it ever has before. And that's a reality that we all need to be prepared for. You might have noticed in my announcement from the 1st of July that we're actually inviting families to think this through. If you come to campus to study with us, and I so much hope you will have to be prepared to live by, live with, abide by those safety precautions that all of us need to practice every day and every night in order to make this work. So it's not like the movies that we see about campus life. It's not like life was on campus at any university or college until the beginning or the middle of March of this year. This will look different and it will feel different, but it will be a powerful experience. We are living a large social experiment together. And what better place than a residential first-rate college like ours, where we're used to working in community in order to try this way of different ways of working in the world. One of these days, there will be a vaccine, and one of these days, there will be useful treatments for people who do get ill. But until then, we need to make our peace with living with the presence of COVID-19 among us. If you're coming to campus, it's because you're a bold adventurer, you are willing to pioneer something with us, and you are willing to do what it needs to take for us all to do this together in person here on our very beautiful campus in the very beautiful city of Lancaster. The fourth pillar on which we are preparing all of our programming for next year are the principles of equity and inclusion. With every decision we make, we are looking at how that serves our many different populations. Does it serve our many different populations? And the answer has to be yes in every instance. So that is one of the other principles and precepts on which we are working as we think ahead and as we decide on one detail after another. I will say again, and you will hear this from my colleagues as well, that there are still many unknowns, but that we will continue to post answers to the website as quickly as we have them for you. And we hope to get to many of your questions today as moderated by Dean Oliver, who will be a very able guide to the kinds of questions you're asking. She'll be able to aggregate those questions and pull out common threads so that we can answer some of your most important concerns right now, knowing that we will have many other communications for you. Email, I hope to send you a video soon, and of course the website. And then when the time comes, of course, also students will have access to their academic advisors. Speaking of academics, I'd like to turn immediately to my colleague and our provost and dean of the faculty, Dr. Cam Wesson. Cam, may I ask you to address our new students and their families about our academic program for the year?
You certainly may, Barbara. First of all, let me say how wonderful it is to have so many of you on this call, 357 in total. I think it shows the deep commitment that you have to F&M and your desire to have more information about what our academic and extracurricular activities will be like in the fall. So I share the excitement and enthusiasm that President Altman has just exhibited. And when we consider what would be best for us in terms of our academic programming for the fall, we had a series of experts from our Educational Policy Committee vet more than 18 different models about what a residential experience would look like for us. And they have developed what we think is a really novel and exciting program of a hybrid development featuring modules. Those modules take the place of our traditional 2 semesters so that each singular semester has now been divided into 2 separate modules. And we also have worked in an exciting opportunity for students to dive deeper into an individual topic with the faculty mentor during a January term. So we have worked very closely with institutions for whom this is their traditional academic model to make sure that we have reflected the very best in the learning objectives and outcomes that we expect at F&M, and give our students the opportunity to balance their classroom studies with extracurricular activities as well. So what the usual 4-course semester has now become will be 2 7-week instructional periods followed by final exams called modules 1 and 2. Students will take 2 courses per module, which will allow them to devote the time and energy that they need to those intensive studies of those courses rather than dividing them between 4 different courses at one time. So this recommendation, as I said, was made after a great deal of investigation to ensure that we were going to be able to develop the right kind of delivery modules and methods for each student, and that our faculty, as President Altman has said, worked tirelessly this summer through a series of training exercises to really challenge themselves to learn, to grow, and to provide our curriculum in new and exciting ways. So we will be engaging our students both through traditional classroom methods as well as new and emerging pedagogies based around distribution of materials online. So this hybrid method is one that has been tried at other institutions without the COVID context. And studies have shown that it is an excellent way in which to make use of classroom time, where faculty can be free to address student concerns and students can also engage materials outside of the classroom setting. So we've also adjusted our academic calendar. Some of you may have already seen this in our announcements. We want to ensure that we avoid the traditional high point of the fall flu season. So we've made the effort to shift our starting date a little bit sooner so that at the end of Module 2, students will leave during the traditional Thanksgiving break and then will complete their final exams remotely. We're hoping that this will allow us to minimize any contact and any transmission of flu that might have normally occurred, and to ensure that the health and safety of our students, faculty, and staff is at the forefront. As I said, we are hoping that students will be residential in the fall. We believe that we are pursuing every prudent measure that will allow us to offer our academic program in all of the exciting ways that you considered when you first came and visited or learned about Franklin and Marshall. The famous Franklin and Marshall rigor will be on display, and we are challenging our faculty, regardless of the delivery method of their courses, to be fully engaged, to be fully hands-on, and to place the priority of learning, growing, and mentoring our students at the forefront of everything that they do. So now I'm going to pivot and introduce my colleague, Vice President Margaret Hazlett, who will talk about the student life aspects of our plans for the fall.
Thank you, Cam. Hello, class of 2024, and we've got some new members of the class of 2023 and 2022. And families, very excited to welcome you to F&M. We are busy getting things ready for you, and many of you participated in your first survey. We do a lot of that at F&M, and getting student feedback is really important. So many thanks for those of you who sent in a response as we're exploring our housing options for the fall. If you didn't get it in, don't sweat it. It's really for us just to get a sense of just a pulse of our students at this time as we think about the housing options for the fall. Lots of folks are busy getting ready for your your arrival on campus. I know many are anxious to know about information and orientation, and you'll be starting to get materials more towards the end of July. We will be having mostly a virtual orientation, but it will be very personal. That's important to us at FNM. And as you will be notified in August of your college house selection, you'll hear from your house advisor, an upper class student who will be in residence with you, and that community we will be establishing. And it may start off established virtually till you get on campus, but very quickly we'll have ways for you to meet in person. And we're just excited about all of that. So orientation will take place, and then it will also be spread out throughout the year. That's how we view the entire first year at FNM as a year of being orientated, because there's a lot to learn in your first year of college. So just know we don't expect you to know everything as soon as you hit the ground running. But more information about housing, roommates, all of that will be coming shortly, as well as our virtual orientation. Student activities, if you haven't already, I encourage you to go on our website and check out the virtual quad. You'll get a taste of some of the activities that we launched mid-March as soon as we transitioned. Lots of things and things going on this summer that we hope to get you involved in. We have Tuesday night trivia and Thursday bingo, and a number of our student clubs have stayed active throughout the summer, including our Diplomatic Congress, our student government, who you'll be hearing soon about some of the good work they're doing in preparation for your arrival for the fall. Advising, as President Altman mentioned, as soon as the course information is released, you'll get information to assist you in that course selection, and talking with faculty about that work. And so we're just all those pieces. Athletics, I know a lot of our student athletes are, what's going to happen in athletics? So more information we hope to have out to you later this week as that continues to evolve within our Centennial Conference, as well as the NCAA. So we're just excited that you'll be coming. We can't wait to see you this fall, and just hope you're all well and safe. I'll turn it back over to President Altman.
Forgive the little moment it took me to find my various buttons to open again. I believe, Caitlin, that we're probably ready to jump into questions. I'm delighted that we have this much time for questions, because I bet there will be quite a lot of them. Would you like to get us started?
Great. So there are a lot of questions about move-in day. So I figured we start there and work our way through that. So there's a question, can you describe move-in day? What is the process going to be? Can parents go into the dorms? Because they've heard that upperclassmen usually help the first year's move-in. And then there's a question on like when exactly is move-in day and when are the start of classes?
So I'll take those. Those are great questions, and more information to come. Historically, I will say, yes, upperclassmen have been the FNM spirit here to welcome you. Given our the pandemic qualifications, we're going to have to do things a little differently. We got that practice this May when we did move out, and we had each student arrive with one family member to get their belongings. I suspect we'll have to do very similar, as we just have to be cognizant of physical distancing and mask wearing to make sure those things put in place. We'll probably have to spread it out over a few days is what I anticipate. So those dates haven't been set yet. It will be around that August 26th prior to that, so you can have a sense, but we'll get that information out, we hope, by the middle of July, so very shortly, so families can plan.
Great. The next question I have is transitioning to the module system that Provost Wesson talked about, because there are a lot of questions about the percent of classes that will be online versus in person, course selection for our first year students, what that will look like. Is it going to be a block system? So there are a lot of specific questions about the module system, and specifically about the connections course. Is the connections course spread across the two modules, or is it only going to be in the first module? So sort of diving just a little bit deeper, Cam, about the sort of module system and what that looks like.
Sure. Thank you, Caitlin. And I'm sure that those are very pressing questions for all of you as you consider what your course load will look like in the fall. We have constructed our Connections course offerings to be spread across modules 1 and 2. So not every student will register for a Connections course in module 1. Some will take it in module 2, which is fine. I think it helps that we spread those out. The course offerings themselves, in terms of the percentages being offered online versus those that will be residential, is still being determined. We have a faculty survey that suggests that roughly 70% of our courses will be taught on campus, that will include this hybrid and engaged model where faculty will be in residence in the classroom. And it looks like about 30% of our classes will be taught in an online only environment, but with incredibly thoughtful procedures put in place for synchronous learning, for establishing community, and for engaging students in a way that is not your typical online experience. So we are working and training very hard to ensure that the very best of the online opportunities that are available will be put into practice. And I would just contextualize those faculty that have chosen to offer their courses online in this way. When you think about those most direly affected by COVID-19 with the least positive outcomes, they tend to be people who look a lot in terms of age and demographics like our faculty and our staff. And so many of our faculty do have underlying health conditions that they want to make sure to protect themselves and their loved ones to limit the possibility of transmission. We're also really grateful that we've had an opportunity for those faculty to express their interests in how they want to engage their students. And that opportunity to offer some of our courses remotely will also allow us to meet all of our social distancing, personal distancing requirements by reducing headcount, by reducing the number of students in individual classroom settings. We actually think that this will be a very workable solution that will allow us to teach the courses that our students need in formats that are both engaging and also protect the health and safety of our community.
Great, thank you, Cam. So there's a lot of questions about if students decide to come on campus and realize they've made the wrong decision, are they allowed to go back home and get a room and board credit? And then it's the other side on if students sort of don't come to campus, how does rooming selection work for future semesters after, you know, COVID has passed or things have gotten better?
Hey, Caitlin, I'll start and then let President Altman if she wants to chime in. So that on a normal year, that happens. Sometimes students come and just realize, you know, they're just not ready for all sorts of reasons. And so they work with their college house dean, who that once they're assigned a college house at their point of contact for the next 4 years for navigating if there are issues, personal circumstances. So they would work with their college house dean to talk about taking a leave, whether it's for the semester, whether it's for the year. And then in our college catalog, so families are wondering about tuition reimbursement and room and board, we have a schedule within there that families can take a look at to understand what that looks like. And if a student chooses not to come this fall, then as far as the housing, we anticipate we'll have a handful of first years who will not come this fall. And so that would work through your office in admissions there, Caitlin, as far as a deferral. And then when they're ready to come to F&M, we would work to match them, just like we do during the normal August process.
And then there's a lot of questions in terms of tuition being less, room and board credits, sort of the cost and the finances of being remote versus not being remote. Will financial aid be affected if I choose remote learning? Will tuition be more or less? So President Altman, I'll let you start.
Thanks, Caitlin. I'll be happy to start there. So our tuition will not be discounted for the year. People do have the choice to come and study on campus. So our tuition remains what we said it would be. But we do have some ways of addressing the need for flexibility. And if you find that your financial circumstances have changed, we are ready to adjust financial aid just as we are in any other year. if there is an alteration in the family's finances. So if you find that you've had a change in your finances, please contact the financial aid office and we will adjust your financial aid as needed. We're also still completely committed to providing full need-based financial aid for the full 4 years. So you can be sure that that financial aid will travel with you and will match your changes in circumstances over the course of your time at F&M. One of the things that we're doing to allow families to benefit from the unusual quality of this year is that the J term, or the January term, which F&M has not had for about 40 years. It's been a long time since we had a J term. It was very popular back in the 70s, in the early 80s. We are introducing a J term again this year, which will be a short, exclusively online term for the month of January before students come back to campus at the beginning of February. And the cost of that term is included in the tuition that you will pay for the year or for one of the 2 terms. That's a terrific opportunity for you to get ahead by a class. So if you want to take a course in the J term, you can make some progress towards an area that you're really interested in, or you might choose to take something that you want to do just to explore. So you can get a 9th course that way without additional charge. And that's one way in which there is some help for you to get ahead a little bit on the number of courses you'll need for your degree.
And President Altman, you referenced J-term, and there's a specific question about that that says, are students allowed to live on campus for that J-term too, or is it strictly from home?
J-term will be strictly from home or from wherever else, whatever other safe haven where you choose to land. What we wanted to do was to clear the campus for December and February for the time that is usually the time of a peak of regular flu season, but also might line up with a second wave of COVID-19 if it follows predictions for this piece of the Mid-Atlantic and the Northeast. So J-term is online only. And if you are living in the residence halls for the fall modules and planning to come back for the spring, you will need to be elsewhere, I hope safe and sound, with loved ones over the December and January months.
Great. So there's a lot of questions coming in about visitors. Are students allowed to have visitors on campus? If a student is remote, can they visit campus to meet with their advisor or, OSPGAD? And then how many people are you allowed to have visit? Are students allowed to go home on the weekends? So sort of the coming and going policy. There's a lot of questions about that.
In a moment, I'm going to ask one of my other colleagues to pick up here. Donna, perhaps you might have some preliminary answers there, or Margaret. Right now, that is one of the things on which we haven't yet worked out all the details. But the principle is that we want as little coming and going as possible. So there is deliberately no break between the 2 fall modules because we will greatly increase the risk of infection if people go away and then come back again. So we are trying to minimize both the number of visitors to campus and the amount that all of us travel off campus for especially this first fall season and the 2 modules. Donna, would you like to add anything to that?
Barbara, I don't think I have anything to add. It's so well said there. I will add that is one of those policies and protocol regarding travel, regarding visitors, that members of the ROOT committee, which is the Reopening Operations Team, is working on diligently. And we plan to have some very detailed answers in the next 2 to 3 weeks.
I think in all likelihood, thank you, Donna. I think in all likelihood, we are going to really, really, really minimize or try to eliminate any visitors to our residence halls who are not living there, because we really need to control the possibility of contagion and of contact. So more to come, and as soon as we get it worked out.
Yeah, absolutely, Barbara. Health and safety of our community, of our students is our priority at all times.
I'll just add, for those who planning to Remain at home. Yes, all of our services, you will be able to contact, someone mentioned Ospagod virtually. We've been doing that since the middle of March. Student activities, Student Wellness Center, all of our services are able to be contacted virtually as well.
Caitlin, I thought I might introduce one more detail, or actually two more details with regard to the financial aid question, if you don't mind having me jump back in. Great, thank you. So what I should have said and could have said was that if you choose to study remotely and have financial aid, your aid package will change because you won't have any room and board charges. So should you decide that you're not going to come to campus to study with us here in person, then you should let the financial aid office know. And the other detail was simply that your family contribution would stay the same, but the question of room and board charges would change. Thanks, Caitlin. That's all I wanted to throw in there because I thought it might be pertinent to some of our families.
Yes, and speaking of financial aid, there are a few questions about work study in terms of what that will look like. Do you have any specifics on what work study will look like if students decide to go remote, or if they will be on campus, what that will look like?
Again, I'll ask my colleagues to jump in. Margaret, would you like to go?
Sure. So Paul Daigle is our Director of Student Employment, and please check out the Student Employment website in the next couple of weeks. We have had students work virtually for some of our offices in March through April. Paul's anticipating being able to do the same, as well as having students present in different roles on campus, because we always need student workers throughout campus, and we'll do the same. But he does anticipate doing a virtual student employment fair this fall. So more information will be coming probably later part of July, early August, to new students about student employment on campus.
And I'll add to that, Caitlin, that one of the great examples of how well this worked in the second half of the spring semester last year was that all of our tour guides, as you know, were still very busy keeping in touch with this current first year class, the class of 24, and all of the applicants, and telling them what to expect and keeping in touch with them, and also helping build virtual tours of campus because we couldn't bring people to the physical site. So we had lots of success stories about how students had work study and other positions and were able to do them virtually.
Great, thank you. So there are a lot of people who have a lot of questions on sort of our COVID testing policies and procedures. So I am going to shift onto that. So there are questions on, will COVID testing be required before getting to campus? Will students be tested when they're on campus? Are professors going to be tested? What happens if someone gets COVID, and do we have a location for quarantine? What's the protocol for how long students can stay if they're trying to get home? So all of that encompassing, and I'll see how you all respond and then make sure we get everything that our families are curious about.
Okay, I'll start. And then Donna, you might want to jump in as well, but let me begin. We do plan to test all students when they arrive on campus. We will hire a provider to do that. And then of course, students will have to stay quarantined during the period when we're waiting for test results. So that is one baseline requirement that we made a decision on last week. We will also require self-screening for all of our faculty and staff so that they will be screening for the first 2 weeks before they come back to campus. And we also are putting protocols in place for when our employees start reporting back to work here on campus. Right now, many people, not all, but many people are working off-site still. So we will have temperature checking. We are looking into an app that everyone can have on their phone that they will use as a daily self-screening. And we will have space set aside for both quarantine and isolation. We have the advantage of having an excellent hospital less than a mile from campus, Lancaster General Health, which is affiliated with Penn Medicine. And should anyone become seriously ill, that is where they would convalesce and be treated. Donna, is there anything else you'd like to add for now? We'll have more concrete details on testing soon, but for the moment, anything?
Well, I want to see, Caitlin, have we answered most of that question? It was a layered question, and I want to make sure that we're really providing that 360 view for everyone.
Yeah, there's just specifics. So just to confirm, because someone did ask a question as you were talking, President Altman, that students will be quarantined at LGH, or will they have quarantine on campus as well?
They will quarantine on campus or in a campus approved facility. So that, you know, quarantine is when you are waiting for test results and you are asymptomatic. You're not actually sick. So we're working that out, and it looks like VP Hazlett wants to jump in on that one. Yes, Margaret?
Yeah, and I think this is a good one for families to talk about with their student, because there is an option for a student to go home if you live relatively close by and that works for you all. So I think this is something, you know, part of our daily lives, all of us right now, as you're thinking about this transition to college. But as President Altman said, we will have quarantine isolation space. We had practiced in these protocols this spring, since we had over 200 students on campus in residence from middle of March to May. So we have a good protocol in place. But again, this is a personal decision that also you should be talking about as a family as well.
At this point, I think that's a very complete answer.
And Caitlin, I will say that we have already trained a cohort of contact tracers, and we are also looking forward to training a group of students to do contact tracing. So if there is any exposure to someone who has been diagnosed with COVID-19, we will have the mechanisms in place to make sure that we do appropriate contact tracing, test those people, and quarantine or isolate as necessary.
So there are two specific questions that came in while you were talking about the COVID testing, that families would like to know: how frequently will testing be done on students after the first one taken when students arrive?
Great question. What we are planning to do now after that first test, when everyone arrives, is to do some random testing. So of various different student populations. And we have yet to determine how often we are going to do that. That may depend on whether we see any cases or not. So I will say that throughout the entire spring term, we were fortunate enough, even with more than 200 students on campus, that we did not have any confirmed cases. I'm not sure that we can guarantee that that same happy result. In fact, it's much less likely now that COVID has become so much more prevalent in other parts of the country. So we will determine the frequency, the needed frequency of testing, in part in reaction to what we are finding of the prevalence.
Good. And then there's another random question that's also very specific on, do you know if they're going to offer, there's a lot of these, the nasal testing or the spit test? I didn't even know there was a spit test, so this is new news for me.
Yeah, there are now many more options than we knew about recently. So we are still actually investigating which is the more reliable. We want to make sure that we choose a method that is not known for having a lot of false negatives. That would be a vulnerability. So we are currently working with some consultants whom we brought in specifically for their expertise on these matters. The consulting firm is called Keeling and Associates, and Dr. Keeling, of the name, is a medical doctor and has run a couple of different medical systems. So he is helping us investigate the newest technologies for testing, and we will choose what we find to be reliable, but also something that has a reasonably quick turnaround, because we don't want people waiting endlessly in quarantine for their test results.
Okay, so I'm going to shift, because as we've been talking about COVID, a lot more questions have come up about housing. So families, if you do have any more questions about specific COVID that I've missed or we didn't catch, please feel free to write them in. But there are a lot of questions about housing, and in terms of, are all first years going to be put in singles? Will there be options for doubles? If so, are students going to be allowed to pick their roommate this year, which hasn't usually been done in the past because they know someone? There are questions about sanitation of the college houses, what that will look like, if it will be different. And then there's a lot of questions about the rooming survey, which I think Margaret talked about it briefly, but there's been a lot of questions about when that will come out. So that's sort of in summary about housing, if anyone wants to start on that.
Donna and Margaret, I'm going to ask the two of you to handle this one, please.
Donna, do you want to start and then I'll fill in?
You're on mute, Donna.
I thought I clicked my mute. For the many students who responded to our survey, and we had an overwhelming response, thank you. We are using that information to inform our housing, and it's been great. We are looking at primarily singles with some doubles for those students who have indicated that they would be willing to share a room. And we are being very thoughtful in terms of assigning those rooms on campus. As you know, all first years will be on campus. And looking at bathroom situations, how we share that square footage of those rooms, particularly around square footage, so physical distancing is comfortable and possible in those doubles. So that information, based on some of the responses to the survey, we are finalizing those details, and further information on housing is coming out very shortly. Margaret, did you want to add anything with regard to the housing?
Yeah, so we delayed getting the information out about roommate selection because till we had a sense of what the fall would look like. And then we wanted to do the survey as far as getting a sense of students' interest in singles versus doubles. So that information will happen because we use that not only for roommate selection, but also for the hall. And so how we build those communities within our residences isn't just based on one room. It's really about thinking the makeup of the community on your hall. So that information will be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
I probably can. I believe there was a question on custodial and cleaning. Am I right, Caitlin? Yes, happy to address that as well. So Root, the reopening operations team, meets with custodial and facilities almost on a daily basis. And there is a fully flushed out protocol on cleaning. In addition, enhanced cleaning with a full complement of staff members, as well as self-cleaning stations. So beyond the cleaning that custodial will be working on day and night, there's also opportunities and really strong encouragement for students, faculty, and staff to care for their own areas and continue to sanitize.
So something that I feel is directly related to sort of housing is dining. So there are a lot of questions about food on campus, from will there be enough food, or are we limiting sort of food on campus since there'll be less students on campus, to how is eating in the dining hall? What is that going to look like? If students are quarantined, how are they going to get food? So sort of all questions around dining, and will all the food spots on campus be open, like Blue Line, McCullough Center, and our main dining hall?
So I'll start and Donna can chime in. Food is very important, and we've got some great food here at F&M. So yes, our dining hall will be open. Again, we got some experience since we had that large number of students here in the spring and had open dining hours, and more information about the meal plan will be coming out shortly. But the Sodexo is who we use. They're looking at a reservation app because eating together is important. And we want to figure out a way to do that safely, because that, again, is a community builder. And so we're definitely going to be able to provide that in the dining hall, and probably through a reservation system is one example. Blue Line will be able to be grab and go. And then also over at the Steinman College Center, we'll also have grab and go options and grill options as well. So we will have a variety of food available. As for our quarantine and isolation space, as we did this spring when we had students in quarantine, we were able to provide meal service delivered to them at that time, and we anticipate setting up a very similar system this fall.
I would only add that the Bite app, B-I-T-E, which will be launched very shortly, also allows for some grab and go in the dining hall. So multiple locations for grab and go, as well as community eating in a very safe physical distancing manner.
Okay. So there are a lot of suggestions for F&M to consider allowing first years to have cars in case of an emergency. Have we thought about that? What are some thoughts about having cars on campus as a first year, since that is currently not a policy right now? In case of an emergency.
Good. The timing's perfect. We actually have a group of colleagues meeting this week to talk about that policy that Donna's pulling together. So that involves Bill McHale, head of public safety, facilities, because we do have to look at the space related to making sure we have enough parking spaces. We recognize these are unusual times, and so that first years have that ability. So that is under review, and we should be able to get something out in the next couple of weeks related to that as well.
Yep, nothing to add there. That's just, we're talking about it as you're talking about it.
Great. And will students who return to campus be provided with or be able to easily access personal protective equipment?
Margaret, do you want to start, or would you like me to?
I'll let you start, Donna. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll start this one. Yes, so we are have been working with our facilities department, and an abundance of PPE has been purchased. That includes shields, face masks, hand sanitizer, gloves. I think I've hit everything. We are working right now. We have enough quantity to lead us through a couple months at least. And we've been told by our vendors that supply is robust. So we have a continuing order in. Distribution will happen the minute students step on campus. And then there'll be options to pick up additional supplies as needed. So we feel really confident about our PPE supply, making sure that everybody has what they need to stay healthy and safe.
Okay, I'm going to combine, there's a lot of questions still about sort of leaving campus, visiting campus, mask protocol. So if someone can talk about how will we encourage each other to practice social distancing and mask wearing? Is it going to be required for students to wear masks? And then are students allowed to go into downtown Lancaster? Since we are, about a 15-minute walk from downtown Lancaster.
Caitlin, you lagged just a little bit there, but I think we heard the end of your sentence. Donna, how about if I start and then you can jump in on that?
Sounds great, Barbara.
Okay, so we are developing something that many, many other colleges and universities are doing as well, which is a social compact. And what that is really is an agreement that everybody on campus is going to play by the rules that will keep us all safe. I'm responsible for your safety, you're responsible for my safety, and together we're responsible for the safety and health of the whole campus community and beyond us into Lancaster. So we're looking at a lot of really great examples of social compacts. We're also working really closely with the student government, the Diplomatic Congress, or DIPCON as we call them for short. They raised this idea with us very early.
We may have lost Barbara. So let me pick it up. Oh, Barbara, are you back?
I don't know. Do you hear me?
Let me pick it up for where she, and if Barbara comes back, she can certainly finish off here. So Barbara was mentioning that, yes, we are working on a social compact or a pledge. And Barbara, I see you're back. Let me defer to you.
Donna, I just got a message.
I'll continue. So students from the student government really outpaced many of us in working on a social compact, pledge, or promise. And they are working on it together with the college to come up with a promise that will be for the entire community. And we will hold each other accountable. So masks are required in public spaces. We will follow all the CDC guidelines. And those that compact will hold us all accountable. So I lost a little bit of the train of the question beyond that, Caitlin. What did I miss? beyond the compact that will be for all the community.
No, I think you answered that part, but I think the other part of the question was about if students are allowed to go like downtown to downtown Lancaster and go off campus walking or biking or.
So I think we touched on this a little bit earlier about visitors coming to campus and students leaving campus. I would also ask Margaret to chime in here. But we will all be healthy and safer if we abide by physical distancing guidelines, and we refer to it as physically distant because we are all very social, and we will continue to be social even if we're not standing right next to each other. So we would strongly encourage, and there may be some more detail about students leaving campus, but the idea is to hold us all safe and healthy. Margaret, anything to add about students leaving campus?
Yeah, no, I mean, FNM is right in the heart of Lancaster City. And my hope is that you all, again, as we're walking around, I live in the neighborhood a few blocks away, that this is a thoughtful community and that people are being safe and wearing their masks, physically distancing. My hope is that, yes, that we would want you to be, again, cognizant of your surroundings, mindful of the neighbors, putting best practices in place, but able to explore the city.
And I'll jump in. I'm assuming you can hear and see me now. All good? Okay. We're having some weather instability in the area. There's the possibility of thunderstorms, so that may be what's going on. I will just add that Lancaster City is open for business, but restaurants and merchants have very strict rules too about how you can come in, how you can use their shops, where you can eat, what you need to do to wear masks in public spaces. And of course, we will expect everyone in the community to abide by the rules that our neighbors in the community have set. There's a lot of really wonderful places to be and things to do in the neighborhood, but it will be subject to what Lancaster is doing to keep the city safe as well.
And there's a follow-up question to what Donna said, and what constitutes a public space? Does that mean like the restrooms in the college houses? Does it only mean like the dining hall or the college center or your classroom? So what constitutes a public space? A lot of people want to know.
Margaret, did you want to touch on that first, or do you want me to start?
You're on mute, Margaret.
You're on mute.
I'll let you start, Donna.
Okay. There's public space outside. There are those folks that there's public spaces as you go from a classroom into the dining hall. Certainly one we are very cognizant of is creating space where there is a COVID physical distance capacity, or thinking about how many people can be in a space safely. And so we're working on all of those spaces on campus. Much as you do at home or when you're out and about at home, you want to be respectful of other people's space. And we would certainly hope that we all as community members would do the same. Public spaces are those where we might share with the public and with our fellow community members all across campus, actually.
Okay, and so my last question before I pass it off to President Altman. And always remember, if your question does not get answered, feel free to visit our website at www.f as in Franklin and A-N-D-M as in Marshall.edu. And there's a frequently asked questions webpage with a lot of answers to questions that were listed on the Q&A doc. So please go visit there, reach out to us. We are here for you as a resource. So my last question is, in the midst of a global pandemic and all the uncertainty that brings, combined with the Black Lives Matter movement and a potentially contentious presidential election, can you tell us about what support services you will have available this fall in terms of mental health services, mindfulness programming, academic tutoring, professor and advisor office hours? Will the gyms be open? Sort of how can our students practice self-care with those online and those on campus?
Margaret, do you want to go first or would you like me to start?
Sure, no, I'll start and then chime in, Barbara. Yes, yes, and yes. So we're excited about the fall. We're in a place that leans into some hard conversations. We know they're going to be difficult conversations with a variety of opinions as we bring 2,000 students into this campus that come with different perspectives and experiences into those conversations. Faculty are eager to engage you in the classroom in those conversations. Outside in your college house, there'll be programs talking about many of these topics, and to support you. Yes, we will be. We just opened the pool today, which was very exciting. The tennis courts. Gradually, our fitness facilities will be up and running. The mindfulness programming has continued through the summer, doing some meditation and yoga. We had a very vibrant offering, slew of offerings this spring, and we'll do that again this fall. Our Student Wellness Center, both for physical health and counseling, will be up and running with both individual and group therapy taking place. So lots going on. We recognize that we anticipate some interesting and challenging and just unique, but that's what what you're coming into in the college community. And we're here to support you in those conversations, stretch you, make you uncomfortable as well, but a lot of people here to help you navigate that together.
Thanks, Margaret. That's it's good to know that you and I would have said almost exactly the same thing that you did, and that's a great sign of consistency. So we managed many of those services, most of those services, even when we were entirely online for the rest of the spring semester. They will be available now, and we intend to function as a community. There are many, many really important social discussions going on right now and a great deal of work that has to get done. We do that best when we do that as a community. I'm happy to say that we've made a lot of progress on a number of our diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives over the summer, throughout the spring and over the summer. By the end of August, we will be joined by Franklin and Marshall's first ever Chief Diversity Officer, who will have the title of Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. She's very much looking forward to joining us, and she will also be part of these conversations. With the house structure, with our excellent wellness center, with our mental health counseling center, with our strong mentoring system with faculty and other advisors, with peer-to-peer collaboration in many ways, this is a very supportive community. And we're looking forward to having those hard conversations here with everyone's voices heard, even if it's from behind a mask. So I echo what Vice President Hazlett said. We relish the opportunity to talk about all of these hard things together and to find a new way of going forward in the world, and to find that together with diversity of thought, diversity of points of origin, and really to practice what it means to be engaged citizens. So that is a part of the plan. And yes, it is going to be a tough fall, but I'd much rather do it in this wonderful community with our students present and with our staff and faculty present than I would do it at home in isolation. So we're looking forward to it, tough as it's going to be. And we think it's going to be a very productive and important learning experience for all of us. This is actually a very important moment in our history. We are never going to be entirely the same, either in this country or in the world, because of the incursions of COVID-19. And it's really important that institutions of higher education like us grapple with how we do this well now and how we do it even better as we emerge from the COVID-19 pandemic, and as we make progress with all of the social ills that we need to change and do better with. So that's what campuses are for. And it's really important to do it with other well-meaning people of good intention, smart people who can ask all the hard questions and who can talk to each other, even if they start from a place of disagreement. So that's what we do. That's who we are. And we're really looking forward to having you here. The first year class looks terrific. We have had very little what's called melt, meaning that people deposited with us for the first year class and then changed their minds. Very few people have left. Far fewer than we anticipated might change their minds. So this is a tenacious, interested, bold, courageous, smart, adventurous, committed class, just like the 3 years ahead of them. So we can't wait for you to come and join the community and do this with us. You're bringing fresh voices and fresh ideas and fresh enthusiasm. And without wanting to sound hyperbolic, you're going to be the ones who help us change the world. So come and do it with us locally here first, and we will figure out how to do this together by accepting shared responsibility for doing it well. So please know that we're tremendously proud to have you coming here. We hope we've answered a good number of your questions. If there are any remaining, and I'm sure there must be, we haven't solved it all yet, we will continue to build out that website, and we will also continue our email communications to you as well. I don't want to abuse our time. We're 1 minute past our finish time. So I will end here simply by telling you that in my almost 2 years as president of Franklin and Marshall, I have fallen in love with this place. We are all here ready to welcome you and to put on an extraordinary year in residential living and learning together. Thanks for so many of you being with us today. It was a real pleasure.